Ever feel like you're doing dating and relationships wrong? Maybe you catch yourself obsessing over when he'll text back and trying not to seem too eager. Or maybe it's the opposite. Whenever someone gets really into you, you feel this urge to pull back, create some distance. Whenever I got closer to someone I was dating and they suddenly wanted more space, I used to think there was something wrong with me. Why do I never need space? Why am I always the one getting anxious when they need their space? And why do guys always seem overwhelmed by my attention and love? These were all mysteries to me and very frustrating until I discovered something called attachment styles. And it completely transformed how I understand relationships. It's like I finally cracked the code of why relationships are so hard. And after sharing bits of this in my other videos, many viewers asked me to explain more about attachment styles and how they affect our relationships. Today, I'll show you why the reason for all this frustration and stress isn't because there's something wrong with you or me or the men we date. You'll see why it's all happening and how you can finally have the relationship you've always wanted. Turns out, our earliest relationships, the ones with our parents or whoever raised us, these relationships shaped how we learned to give and receive love. When we were little kids, the way they responded when we needed comfort or support basically taught us what to expect from relationships. And now, as adults, we continue to expect the same patterns of giving and receiving love. There are four main patterns you'll come across, four main attachment styles. First, there's the secure attachment. People who have a secure attachment style, they trust that it's safe to be close to others while still being their own person. They can handle both the ups and downs of relationships without losing themselves. When something bothers them, they can bring it up calmly. When their partner needs space, they don't take it personally. They know their worth isn't dependent on any one relationship. Then we have anxious attachment. That was my attachment style in all my previous relationships. You know that feeling when you're always worried the guy you're dating might pull away? Maybe you catch yourself overthinking his texts, or you need constant reassurance that everything's okay. That's anxious attachment. We're the ones who get called clingy or coming on too strong. But really, we just want to feel secure in our relationships. Then there's avoidant attachment. You value your independence so much that closeness feels threatening. Everything might be going great, but the moment someone starts getting too close, like wanting to spend more time together or planning for the future, you feel overwhelmed and need to create distance. It's like you have an internal alarm that goes off when things get too intimate. And finally, there's a fearful avoided attachment. You really want a deep connection with someone, but you're also terrified of getting hurt. So you find yourself going all in, wanting to be super close, but the moment it starts feeling real and vulnerable, something inside you hits the panic button and you pull away. Unlike avoidant men who are comfortable keeping their distance, you actually struggle with both. Being close feels scary, but being distant doesn't feel right either. If you're resonating with any of these patterns so far, or you've seen that happen in your relationships, I think you'll love my weekly newsletter. Every week, I share insights and honest conversations about gay life, dating, and relationships. The link is in the description. Now, how do you know which attachment style you have? Let's start with anxious attachment. Here are some signs that were eye-opening for me. You're constantly checking your messages. You're analyzing how long it took him to respond. You hold back expressing your needs because you don't want to scare him away. You find yourself always accommodating his schedule and preferences. You're afraid that if you don't, he might lose interest. And the classic, you notice the smallest changes in his behavior and immediately think there must be something wrong and he's about to leave you. Now, what about avoidant attachment? Do you ever find yourself focusing on little things that aren't perfect about guys you're dating? Then you use these as reasons why it wouldn't work out. And just when a relationship starts feeling real, maybe he wants to introduce you to his friends or start talking about the future, you suddenly feel the urge to pull back. You value your independence so much that even small compromises feel like you're losing yourself. Basic couple things like good morning texts or spending several nights in a row together, they make you feel trapped or like you need to escape. Here's where it gets really interesting. I often hear people say that most gay men are avoidant. They're emotionally unavailable, and as soon as you start getting close, they need space. Others say the opposite, that gay men are total drama queens that always get anxious and clingy. So, which one is it? Here's what I discovered, and it explained everything about my dating life. There's a reason why it seems like everyone is either running away or too clingy. Anxious and avoidant people are literally drawn to each other, like magnets, and they find themselves in this endless cycle of attraction and frustration. And here's why. When you're anxiously attached, you're super sensitive to someone being emotionally distant. You notice it right away. Now, here's the tricky part. That emotional distance actually feels familiar to you. It's a dynamic you know how to navigate. Trying harder, being extra attentive, working to keep his interest. So while securely attached guys might feel boring or too easy, these distance ones feel like the real thing, like this is what connection's supposed to feel like. Meanwhile, avoidant people are drawn to anxious partners because initially all that attention and effort feels good and safe. Safe because they know they have the control. They can always pull back if it gets too much. Then it becomes like a dance where both sides keep triggering each other's deepest fears. The anxious person, desperate for closeness, pushes for more connection. And this makes the avoidant person feel suffocated. So they pull away. And when they pull away, that triggers the anxious person's worst fear of abandonment, making them push even harder for reassurance. So what happens is this. If you're anxious, you keep meeting guys who seem terrified of commitment, and this makes you think everyone in the gay dating world is avoidant. And if you're avoidant, you keep attracting guys who notice your distance and want to get you closer, making you feel like everyone out there is just too clingy. Now, being gay adds another layer to all of this. Think about it. Most of us grew up without seeing what a healthy gay relationship looks like. No role models at home, rarely on TV, and definitely not in our teenage years when everyone else was having their first relationships. This lack of models affects us in two ways. First, when we don't see what a healthy emotional expression looks like between two men, we either learn to hold back our feelings, becoming more avoidant, or we're left unsure about what's normal in relationships, which can make us more anxious. And then there's the dating pool issue. When you're gay, especially if you're not in a big city, the dating pool can feel tiny. This can push us into either extreme. Some of us get anxiously attached really quickly because who knows if I ever meet anyone else who's compatible, while others become more avoidant because with limited options, they worry about getting trapped in the wrong relationship. And this whole dynamic, it plays out perfectly in hookup culture. If you're anxiously attached, you might find yourself hoping every Grindr chat could turn into something more. Maybe you've caught yourself getting emotionally invested even though it was clearly just a hookup, or analyzing his social media after he leaves. You might even perform a bit extra in bed, hoping he'll want to see you again. And it all makes sense. When it's so hard to find real connection, it's natural to hope that any spark could turn into something more. If you're avoidant, hookup apps probably feel perfect. They let you control exactly how close people get to you. You might feel uncomfortable when a hookup wants to stay and chat afterwards, or you find yourself ghosting the moment someone hints at wanting more than just fun. The whole no strings attached culture feels like a relief because it normalizes keeping people at arm's length. Now, here's the good news. You're not stuck with your attachment style. While our early patterns run deep, they can change through self-awareness, self-work, and yes, experiencing healthy relationships too. I've seen this in my own journey through therapy, coaching, and gradually learning to relate differently to others. That's how I moved from constant anxiety to a more secure way of connecting. And yeah, while understanding attachment styles helps, if we want to make real changes, it usually requires support. That could be therapy or working with a gay dating coach who actually gets what you're going through. Having that kind of guidance can be life-changing. The goal isn't to become a different person, but to learn how to stay true to yourself while building meaningful connections. Because at the end of the day, that's what secure attachment is really about. Being able to stay connected to someone without losing yourself in the process. If you found value in this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more insights and guidance on gay life, dating, and relationships. Love you all.